This example will be for frequency management for HF radio networks of a typical military type. Some preparations have been made in the way of preparing allotments, that is channel frequency lists that the networks are allowed to operate on. We used the fixed and mobile services in the 2 to 12 megahertz frequency range from the ITU table of frequency allocations for region 1 in order to prepare that channel list. Okay, first we will illustrate how to create HF stations and create a new network in this project where there already are a few networks. So I right-click in the map, select New Station, and select from the templates of RAP. I will make these into ALE, Automatic Link Establishment stations. So let's call this one HFA. It has a predefined frequency, a nominal frequency of 5 megahertz. This is what we are going to change when we assign frequencies for the ALE net. And the transmitter properties, in this case it uses, this is a horizontal half-wave dipole, and the same for the antenna. So this is a 100-watt transmitter. So there it is. It also appears in the list of stations in the project, HFA. The others were there before. Let's create a few more of these, and I do this the simple way of copy, making a duplicate of the station and moving it in one operation. That is done by pressing the Control key and then by drag and drop in the map, perform this. Okay, so there we are. We have 5 additional stations to the first one that I created. First, I will make a link between 2 of these stations in order to demonstrate the link performance calculator, the way it works for HF. So we link these 2. Now they are linked. I use the HF planning tool and run the IcePack software for this. In here, the settings are reasonable. Sunspot number 20 for the month of May 2010. That could be a prediction some months ahead also. So I run this with a graph presentation, and this graph shows in color-coded representation the reliability of the link. And 90% and above is white, yellow indicates between 80 and 90%. So it's a reasonable link for a 100-watt transmitter. I close that. Now we will form these new stations into a network. So I create a new network new. Let's call it HF net 4. There are 3 nets before here. And we need to add the stations. First I can actually choose a frequency or just set a frequency. Let's use the 5 megahertz frequency that we have on the other stations. On the administrative tab, we define the class of stations that this network is to operate with. Could be multiple of them. Here are the stations in the project that are not yet assigned to be in a network, so we put them in the network. And I want the central station in the network, HFA, to be the master station. Okay, so that network has been created now, and it can be seen here, HFNet 4. HFNet new there, I may just as well take that away because it's not used for any purpose. Then, having shown a quick demonstration of the ionospheric prediction there, we will now continue to prepare the frequency plans that these networks are allowed to make use of. And as a preparation for that, we ran the Spectrum Allocation Manager, RAP SAM, to prepare a list of frequencies that we are allowed to use for these networks, but of course we should not use all of them because this allotment contains about, 1,783 frequencies in the 2 to 12 megahertz band, operating in the fixed and mobile services allocations. So what we're going to do is divide this into several smaller pools of frequencies, and these pools of frequencies can, in the spectrum management organization, can be distributed from the central spectrum management level to subordinate levels where the responsibility resides for the detailed network planning for the HF stations. So I will divide this, and that is by marking it, selecting new allotment and divide it. And this opens the divide allotment setup window. What I'm going to do is we assume that we have 4 subordinate organizations with the responsibility to manage their networks. So I create ALE pool 1, ALE pool 2, and so on. Then we define how many frequencies that should be in each pool. In these networks, we are not going to make use of the organizational levels. It can be defined in the military hierarchy how many frequencies that are supposed to be used at the division level, for instance, brigade level, battalion, company, and it's possible to add more organizational units. But for this example, we will just use the non-level assignment of frequencies. There's no use in assigning frequencies or preparing allotments that contain frequencies that will not propagate. So we calculate the propagating frequencies, and this will be based on the existing networks in the project. So for the example here, I will use the new network that we created, which is this one, If I mark only the highlighted station, it assumes that the network operates in a star fashion. So it is a point-to-multipoint network with the master station communicating with its subordinate stations. So there is no requirement for links between the subordinate stations. If I mark all of them like this, it will be a fully mesh network, so all stations are able to communicate with everybody else. For this continuation, I will use it in a mesh network, so I mark all of them. And I'll run this as a silent calculation, meaning that we will not open any HF propagation software interface. It just runs and gives us frequencies. And I want to do this with selection to MUF, maximum usable frequency. Calculate. So the propagating frequency range is 2 to 7.23 megahertz. That is the minimum and the maximum frequency that is possible to use over the 24 hours. And these have been automatically set there. Let's then assume that we give 50 frequencies to each pool. Okay. And likewise, we'll do the same with, now I remember the settings here, 2 and that's 50, and that was 7.23, or wasn't it? I need to do, yeah, it was. And continue with this. 50, 2 to 7.23. We do not put in any prioritized frequencies right now for this example. We could have done that, but I don't do that. And ALE pool 4, also 50, 2 to 7.23. There was a mistake on my behalf. I forgot. 2 to 7.23, and that way. And okay. Here is a calculation setting that may be of interest here. We want to spread frequencies. Since the frequencies of operation can be 2 to 7.23 megahertz, we may want to ensure that we do not assign frequencies, the 50 frequencies in a too small frequency band. With so many frequencies, it's not much of use to have this function, but if we were just to create, let's say, 5 frequencies, the probability of jamming them together at one end of the spectrum is not insignificant. It is possible to consider existing allotments here in order to avoid them, not to make use of frequencies that already are in use or have been allotted for perhaps for some exclusive operations. In that case, we would do like this. So if I run it like this, we will make use of our complete 2 to 12 megahertz fixed and mobile allotment, while avoiding frequencies that may already have been allotted to this NATO HF pool. But for this demonstration, I will not use that. There are settings also for separation of frequencies within each allotment. In this case, it is 6 kilohertz within the allotment, and between allotments, I have set it to 12 kilohertz. These settings are used to ensure non-interference between allotments. If we, for instance, had put 0 frequency separation, there would have been a risk of interference, and some separation now for adjacent channel interference protection has been included. Pressing next starts the calculation. So now it runs to generate 4 pools of frequencies, of 50 frequencies each, taken from a source allotment which has about 1,750 or so frequencies, and it considers the propagation within the networks. It considers the requirements for frequency separation. Here we get a list now of conflicts, and these are a number of conflicts that could not be resolved because from the 200 frequencies in total, required separation between each allotment frequency of 6 kilohertz. That's a certain bandwidth, and it can be seen that there are some 6. The separation is 3 kilohertz, but the requirement was 6 kilohertz. We can run this again with larger population size and so on, and just to see what happens. The calculation takes a little longer. If it is very important that we have a few frequency conflicts, you should allow the time for the algorithm to make a better, less interfering solution. So in this case of these types of networks, it's not really important that we have such complete freedom of interference, because these networks, ALE networks, have an inherent capability of avoiding interference by good selection of frequencies. The list is shorter now, and if I had allowed this to take a little longer, it would probably be possible to have complete non-interference. But we'll save these. So I save them all and finish. So here they are, ALE pool 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, a next thing that can be done is to assign frequencies to the networks. Now I'm running everything in a single procedure, running it on the same computer. But in practice, this could very well be that the next operation is done at a lower level in the hierarchy of spectrum management by a frequency manager that is responsible for networks in his own organization only. The operation I did before could have been done at the central headquarter level, at the central spectrum management agency. These pools of frequencies can be exported into a text format and that text format can be well, it can be printed, but the practical thing is to send it by email or use whatever data network communication that is available. It is also possible for the subordinate levels to connect to the same database. So once the central manager has saved these in the database, the subordinate and frequency managers can see them in their link to the database, to the same database. So it depends on how you set up the frequency management organization. Okay, let's go to networks in project now. So here we have these 4 networks. HFNet 4 was the one we created now. It has a single frequency of 5 megahertz. The other networks already have a list of frequencies, but we are going to reassign all of them to ensure that they are mutually they have mutual low interference, and they adhere to the spectrum management regulations within the organization, because we have done this according to the book, starting with the ITU regulations and going down. Okay, so the newly created frequency pools are here. The long list of pools here are also possible to select for me, but I cannot be sure that they have been created according to the procedure. So we will use one of these. So let's take ALE pool 1. And I define here how many frequencies we assign to each network, and perhaps a typical number is 6 for an ALE network. With a delete and add check means that frequencies that are already assigned to the networks will be deleted and the new frequencies added. If I use this add, then 6 new frequencies will be added to the existing assignments. But in this case, we want to reassign, so we do like that. Assign. This is a very quick operation, the assignment in itself, because the clever interference calculations and considerations have been done at a higher level in the spectrum management organization, where it has taken a little longer to prepare the allotments, and this assignment, which is performed at a lower level in the organization, is very quick, and it ensures non-interference between the nets. So they each have 6 frequencies now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The get frequency limit function is available directly here on the edit network tab also, and it can be checked just the way I did before, but there shouldn't be a need for it because it runs the same algorithm that we've already done. So now we have ensured that these 4 networks have been assigned frequencies that have propagation over the 24 hours of the day. And the frequencies have been selected according to the policies of the organization, since it has been from the top prepared from the ITU table of frequency allocations using the spectrum allocation manager, and then continued from there to have been subdivided into subordinate frequency pools that can be used by the lower units in the organization, lower levels in the organization. So that completes this demonstration of HF net frequency assignment.